Hello everyone, my name is Norvia and welcome back to my channel. In this video, first I'm going to update and finish the March portion of my reading journal, then I'll move on to set up the beginning spread of my April theme. I only updated my reading journal once throughout the month, so I'll add all the books I read for the month right now into the key, and then put them into the calendar. I was able to read 4 books this month and was able to start a 5th one that I'll finish next month. I read the books The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett, Shatter by Tahereh Mafi, and finally the Audible version of 1984 by George Orwell. Flipping the page, I'll get started on the decorated review spread for The Song of Achilles. This was the only physical book that I read this month. All of the other books were listened to as an audiobook. This book was given to me during a book swap that I had with some college friends a few years back, so I really wanted to read it. This book took me over a month to read, but I think it's just because of the format that I read it in. Recently, I've been really into audiobooks because I can listen to them while I drive, do homework, or edit my videos. Dedicating time to sit down and read a physical book is a little bit harder for me to do. However, eventually I did get through this book and I really enjoyed it. I rated The Song of Achilles at 4.25 stars. While I was reading the book, most of it was pretty good, but I didn't think it was anything amazing until the very end. The ending tied the whole story together in a really tragic and beautiful way that really put this book over the top for me and made me think it was an amazing read. I liked this book so much that I decided to give it 2 whole pages for its spread. Moving on, I'll start on the review spread for Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Faeries. This book also got a full spread for its review, and for the decorations, I wanted to match elements from the cover along with elements from the storyline. From the cover, I wanted to pull the greenery and nature elements. From the story, I pulled the cold, snowy setting. I decided to use my rubber stamps along with a paint pen to do the title of this page. This was a lot of work, but I really liked how it turned out. Throughout the stamping process, my cat Nacho got curious and decided to visit a couple of times. I rated this book even higher than the last one, with the score coming in at 4.5 stars. I really loved this book the whole time I was reading it. It was a very cozy, cute fantasy read. I really loved the main character Emily and how awkward but well-meaning she was. I also really loved how fun and charismatic Wendell was, and how their opposite personalities worked together. I love this book so much that I've already got my spot reserved in Libby for the next in the series. Moving backwards in my journal, I find an empty page to do my review spread of Shatter Me. When I'm setting up things in my bullet journal, it really matters to me that things are kept in order. However, it's not the same way in my reading journal. I'll put review spreads wherever there's an empty page, even if it's technically located in the previous month's pages. Shatter Me was a book that I enjoyed and I'm glad that I read, but I did have a few major issues with it. This is a young adult book, and I don't mind reading them as long as they're done well. This book started off really well and had a really good concept. It also ended well with a lot of action and introducing characters for the next book in the series. However, I felt like the middle of the book was very boring and that a lot more could have happened. For these reasons, I rated this book at 3.5 stars. As I said before, I read this as an audiobook, and I would not recommend this for everyone. This book has a very interesting writing style, where a lot of the sentences and words are crossed out. I feel like it would be a better option to read this as a physical book over an audiobook, as this can sometimes get confusing. Having said all that, I still plan on reading the next of the series. Flipping back ahead in my journal, I'll start decorating the review spread for 1984. I did not listen to the original 1984 book by George Orwell. What I listened to was a dramatized version that Audible put out. The narrators included people like Andrew Garfield, Cynthia Erivo, and Tom Hardy. This book was only about 3.5 hours long versus the original being about 12 hours. I haven't read the original version, but as far as I can tell, all of the major plot points are covered in this one. I really liked this book and liked how deep it went into its dystopian setting. I loved how this book used language and words to really display the control the government had over its people. Not allowing certain words to be used, and even coming up with a new language, showed the absolute control of the government and just how dystopian this society was. Overall, I rated this book 3.75 stars, and I'd really love to read the original version in the future. I'd like to compare the two and see what details were omitted from this version that were in the original. Next, I'll flip back to my main March spread to do a final update on the calendar and to start my statistics. I started reading Project Hail Mary this month, and I hope to finish it next month. For the statistics, I always like to include a bar graph detailing the genres I've read, along with 3 pie charts detailing the source of the book, the format of the book, and the page number of the books that I've read. I track all of these stats on an app called Storygraph. This month I read 3 romance books, 2 dystopian books, and 2 fantasy books. Two of my books came from Libby, one was off Audible, and one was gifted to me in a book exchange. Three books were audio, with only one physical, and only one book was under 300 pages, the rest being somewhere between 300 and 499 pages. In total, I read 4 books this month, with 1,021 pages read. My average rating was 4 stars, and my average book length was 255.25 pages. My average time to finish was 17 days. This is really above my usual average, but it's because I took a long time reading The Song of Achilles, so I don't mind it too much. Next, I'll glue in my book covers. Next, I'm going to flip backwards in my journal again to update my yearly spreads. The first one I'll update is my books read in 2025 spread. This is just a space for me to see all of the books I've read this year all in one spot. Flipping the page, I'll update my on the shelf spread. This page is a visual representation of my reading goal for the year. There are 40 books on the shelf, and once they're all colored in, I'll have met my goal. On the right side of the page, I'll update my top TBR list. This is just the top 12 books I was looking forward to reading most this year. As you can see, I've already read One Dark Window, and now I can mark off Encyclopedia Faeries along with the Song of Achilles. Moving on, I update my book bingo. The Song of Achilles fulfilled the book prompt for a physical book, so I peel off the tape to see where I need to place it in the bingo. I do the same for 1984, as this was a book that I was able to read in one day. The next page is my prioritization matrix. This is how I'll decide my top 12 books of the year. For March, my top rated book was Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia Faeries, so I'll fill that in first. Then I'll go to the matrix to fill in the results. Finally, I'll update my series tracker by putting in the Emily Wilde series and the Shatter series. Next, I'll start working on my April theme. Usually when I set up these pages, the only thing I have down is my calendar and decoration. I leave a lot of space open for my key book covers and stats, since I don't know exactly how many books I'll be reading this month. For this month's theme, I used 3 plain washi tapes and stickers from 3 individual sticker sheets from Stickii. The sticker sheets have mythological creatures that relate to certain elements, like fire, water, or air. I used the plain washi tape as a background for the stickers to go over to create a little dimension. I thought this theme would be perfect for my reading journal, as I read a lot of fantasy with a lot of fantastical settings and creatures. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of my video. Please come back to see next month's video to see how this spread looks filled out.